Good morning, Youngstown. This is a great day, full of celestial beauty and harmonic resonance. This day has been waiting for you. It has been waiting especially for you, to embrace you, to guide you. This is the day that we have been given. Let's not waste it. Please stand as you are willing or able and join us in singing our first hymn in the gray hymnal, number 323, Break Not the Circle.
Break not the circle of enabling love, where people grow forgiven and forgiving. Break not that circle, make it wider still, till it includes, embraces all the living. Come wonder at this love that comes to life, where words of freedom are with humor spoken, and people keep no score of wrong and guilt, but will that human bonds remain unbroken? Join then the movement of the love that frees, till people of whatever race or nation will truly be themselves, stand on their feet, see eye to eye with laughter and elation.
Good morning again. My name is Michael Condor. We are so happy that you can be with us today, whether it is here in person, on Zoom, Facebook, or later on YouTube. What a joy it is to be together. Our wonderful minister, Reverend Joseph, is out, so he asked me to share the pulpit today. Reverend Joseph is our called minister at UUYO. As minister, he has built on our church's legacy of community engagement and social justice in Youngstown, Ohio, through service as chaplain for the Youngstown Police Department and clergy caucus chair for Action, a grassroots community organization collective that demands social justice for residents of the inner city. Reverend Joseph has a Master's of Divinity from Union Theological Seminary in New York, where he has served as a chaplain at Rikers Island Jail and held a prestigious preaching fellowship at the First Unitarian Church of Cleveland Shaker Heights. We have a couple of announcements today, which can be found on the back of your order of service. First is right after service today, down in Channing Hall, is the UUYO Spring Bake Sale fundraiser. Join us today just in time for Easter. This year we're offering a variety of baked goods, cakes, pies, breads, and more, sold whole at set prices. Then this Thursday, April 2nd at 7:30 p.m. Is the Tenebrae service, a time of darkness and shadows, which you can read more below. And for the women of UUYO, there is a proposition, Reimagining Women's Alliance, UUYO's Women's Wine and Wine/Thirsty Thursdays Inclusion Collective. For more information on that, you can call Melissa Smith. Her details are here in the program, or Tracy at coffee hour following service. Now I would like to invite our worship assistant, Ryan Striffler, to deliver our chalice light.
Good morning, friends, and what a beautiful morning it is today. The sun's shining, it's warming up a little bit. We might have finally put freezing temperatures and winter behind us, fingers crossed. All around, nature's waking up for another year. The trees are budding, daffodils and tulips are pushing up into life. Birds are returning, tree frogs add their chorus to the night. Signs of life are everywhere if you know where to look and if you pay attention. And yet attention seems hard to come by these days. In a new book published in January called Attention Span, a groundbreaking way to restore balance, happiness, and productivity, Dr. Gloria Marks studies how people interact with technology in their everyday lives and how technology affects our attention, multitasking, mood, and stress level. She studies people's behavior in real-world settings, and she's found our attention spans have been shrinking over the last 2 decades. Back in 2004, she found the average attention span on any screen to be 2.5 minutes on average. Throughout the years, it became shorter. In 2012, just 6 years later, she found it to be only 75 seconds. In the last 5 or 6 years, she found the average to be only 47 seconds. And other studies have replicated this result to within a few seconds. So all that information seems to be pretty robust. And the median average, the mean between the extremes, is only 40 seconds. And what this means is half of all the measurements that she found were 40 seconds or less in terms of people time being able to pay attention to the information that they're receiving. A functional attention span of 40 seconds is shocking, especially since it represents a 4-fold decrease in our attention span just in that time period since cell phones and smartphones more specifically have existed. And yes, the culprit is likely and ironically technology, although perhaps not quite in the way we might think. For example, she says, quote, TV and film shot lengths have decreased over the years. They started out much longer. They now average about 4 seconds in shot length. So we've become accustomed to seeing very fast shot lengths when we look at TV and film. Even commercials have shortened in length. Commercials used to be much longer. Now it's not uncommon to see 6-second commercials, or even shorter than that. Now that's a chicken and an egg question. We don't know if TV and film have affected our attention span on computers and phones. We don't know if our attention spans have affected the decision-making of film editors and directors. We don't know exactly if there's any causal connection we see in those parallel trends. But it has become ubiquitous. In fact, on YouTube, there's a particular YouTube aesthetic that uses jump cuts. So when you're watching a YouTube film, the film is like very jumpy. The natural pauses that people make when they speak are removed. The idea is to pack more content into a shorter amount of time. So we're seeing short lengths of content from all directions. It's not just what we are attending to on our computers and phones. Dr. Marks argues it's not a good thing for the following reasons. First of all, she finds in her research a correlation between frequency of attention switching and stress. So the faster the attention switching occurs, the stress goes up. We know from decades of research in a laboratory that when people multitask, they experience stress, their blood pressure rises. There's a physiological marker in the body about an increase in stress. So what can be done about these disturbing trends? Dr. Marks is a big advocate for changes on the collective level. She notes the reason is that if any individual decides to pull out and completely cut themselves off from technology, they could actually penalize themselves. If you're a knowledge worker of any time, you're cutting yourself off from important work and communications. You could be cutting yourself off from communications with family, friends, loved ones, from important news in the world. So it's not always beneficial for somebody just to cut themselves off. But organizations can do things. They can, for example, control times during the day when electronic communications are sent or received. They could create windows of time when no communications would be sent, and this would be quiet time for people at work. Her research finds people check email 77 times a day. On a societal level, there's starting to be what's called a right to disconnect laws. There's one in France called the El Khomri law. Ireland and the province of Ontario in Canada have policies such as this. New York City tried to introduce a right to disconnect law in its city council, but that got shut down very quickly. Other changes are up to us as individuals. In her book, Dr. Marks notes, I think one of the best things adults can do is make sure your internal tank of mental resources is kept at a high capacity. When you have a full tank of resources, you can focus much better than when you're just spent, when your resources are just drained because you're doing hard work all day, you've been switching your attention a lot. Another thing you can do is get good night's sleep. If you need 8 hours of night sleep and you're only getting 6 hours of night sleep, you're accumulating what's called a sleep debt. And the greater one's sleep debt is, the shorter one's attention span. And what do people do when they have a lot of sleep debt? Study found they tend to do more lightweight activities like scrolling social media. They just don't have the resources to be able to focus and do hard work, so they do what's easy based off the amount of resources they do have. So today, we light this chalice with the intention of paying closer attention in our lives so that we can be there for those whom we care deeply about and feel connected and supportive, and so we can better live in connection with other human beings.
We now invite you to take a moment to greet your neighbors, especially those whom you may not know or recognize. If you're tuning in on Zoom, don't be shy. Say hi to the people in the chat.
No, I
Me not paying attention, that looks pretty nice.
I thought you might like a picture of yourself sitting up in this chair, you know? I'm gonna give him like another 30 seconds. I'll give him another 30 seconds or so. Good morning. Try again. There you go. Good morning. So this is our Sunday that we're having our Unitarian Universalist Minute. What is a UU Minute, you might ask? Well, I'm going to tell you about someone who did the seemingly impossible and who helped push our Unitarian Universalist faith toward what we say we value: courage, justice, and a love big enough to be real. And I'm going to save his name until the end. So no shout-outs. What could one person possibly do against something as huge and cruel as slavery? What could one minister do when the law itself was unjust? What could one preacher do when even his own religious community thought he had gone too far? The person I'm thinking of did not begin with power or wealth. He grew up on a farm in Lexington, Massachusetts, one of 11 children. He was brilliant, but he could not afford the usual path through higher education. So he did something that already sounds impossible. He taught himself the material Harvard students were expected to know, then went to campus only to take the exams. He passed, of course. Later, after working as a school teacher and saving money, he continued at Harvard Divinity School. Even at the beginning of his life, he showed the pattern that would define him. When usual doors were closed, he found other ways through. When he became a Unitarian minister, he did not stay safely inside the boundaries people expected. In the 1830s and 40s, religion was often expected to comfort people, preserve order, and stay respectable. Instead, he asked bold questions. He challenged the idea that Christianity depended on miracles or in taking every part of the Bible as literal and permanently binding. He said that what was permanent in religion was deeper than dogma. It was moral truth, conscience, and the living call to love and justice. When he preached a sermon called "The Transient and Permanent in Christianity," many people were outraged. He was branded a heretic, denounced by many, and pushed to the margins, even within Unitarian circles. But he kept preaching. He trusted his conscience more than approval. And then came the issue that would test everything: slavery. This Unitarian recognized the legacy and responsibility of the American Revolution from an early age. His grandfather led the Lexington militia on April 19, 1775, the day the Revolutionary War began. In 1850, the Fugitive Slave Act made it law that escaped enslaved people could be hunted down, even in free states, and returned to slavery. It required people in supposedly free communities to cooperate with that cruelty. It turned obedience into a moral crisis. And this minister decided that faith required resistance. He did not only speak against slavery in general, he acted. He worked through Boston's Vigilance Network to protect people escaping slavery. He helped fugitives. He defended William Ellen Craft, who had escaped enslavement in one of the most daring escapes in American history. He protested so fiercely in the case of Anthony Burns that he was charged with inciting a riot. Think about that, a minister facing legal consequences because he believed that no human being should be forced into slavery. For him, resisting injustice was not separate from religion. It was religion. That is part of what makes his story feel almost impossible. It's hard enough to preach justice when it's popular. It is far harder to stand for justice when it costs you your comfort, your reputation, your safety, and sometimes your life. He believed that moral law stood above unjust human law, and he lived as though that were true. He also spoke out for women's rights long before it was common or safe to do so. He argued that women should have the same rights as men, including the right to vote and the right to become doctors and lawyers and ministers. He was one of the first American clergy to speak this plainly, and even one of the first to refer to God as both Father and Mother. He kept widening the circle of human dignity. His influence stretched far beyond his own lifetime. His words helped shape ideas later echoed by Abraham Lincoln, especially the language about government being for all the people and the famous idea that the moral universe bends toward justice, words many people associate with Martin Luther King Jr. Those words reach back to him as well. Even today, many people live with the power of his words without knowing his name. Now, to be honest, this Unitarian was not perfect. Like many white abolitionists of his time, he did not fully escape the racism of his era. He wanted to end slavery, though, like many white abolitionists, he maintained white supremacist beliefs and questioned the possibility of racial equality. I think had he lived longer, he would have come around. This matters, so we say so. But his life still shows what courage can look like. Not perfection, but action. Not safety, but moral risk. Not keeping faith hidden in the pulpit, but carrying it out into the struggle for justice. So, who was this person who did the seemingly impossible? Karen always knows. She used to be the DRE here. It was Theodore Parker, a self-taught farm boy, a Unitarian minister called a heretic, a preacher who refused to separate faith from justice, a man who helped resist slavery when resistance was dangerous. Theodore Parker. So we end our UU Minute today. Next week you will have an Easter story from me, and we're using a different format to create the story, so I'm thinking it might come in the form of a video. So we will see if I get it done. And then also next week, there will be an Easter egg hunt. All right, so I'd like to invite the children to join me down on the floor here, and we will do our covenant and sing our children out.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Each week in our church, we take up an offering. It's good to remind ourselves from time to time the offering is both symbolic as well as practical. We know it's through our pledges that we build our budget and fund our yearly program and ministries of worship and religious education, pay our staff, professional religious leaders, and finance the comfort and beauty of our building. We know we could easily submit those pledge checks to the church at any convenient time, but we pass the plate during our worship service to make it a community expression of thanks for the blessings of abundance, to visibly bring in the harvest at this most cherished hour of our week. Our offering says that the act of giving is as essential to our spiritual well-being as anything else we do here on Sunday morning. This week, our offering goes to the League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization encouraging informed and active participation in government. It influences public policy through education and advocacy. On March 19th, the League of Women Voters of Greater Youngstown will be having a ceremony honoring women who have empowered, educated, engaged, and advocated for the people in our valley, who made an enduring local impact, and who have fought to uphold the values of our democracy. 2 of the women in our congregation were honored this year, and several have been honored in the past. Money raised by this event will support local voter education efforts, including the creation of the annual voter information guide and funding programs aimed at empowering women and promoting civic engagement. Thank you for your generous spirit. We will now receive the offering that supports the life of Youngstown, the Mahoning Valley, and our wider world. Our first reading is The Heart Knoweth by Ralph Waldo Emerson, and it's actually a responsive reading, and that means the script is going to be in the back of your gray hymnal in the reading section, and it's going to be numbered 661. In the responsive reading paradigm, I read the text indicated in normal font, and if you choose to participate, you as the congregation respond in the subsequent text, the following text, in italicized font. So I read the normal font and you read the italics underneath. The Heart Knoweth by Ralph Waldo Emerson. We have a great deal more kindness than is ever spoken. The human family is made. How many persons we meet in houses whom we scarcely speak to, whom yet we honor and who honor us.
How many we see in the street
or sit with in church, whom so silently we rejoice to be with. Read the language of these wandering eye-beams.
During these next few moments of silent meditation, I encourage you to reflect upon the things that in your life that give you joy. Think about all those things that encourage and drive you. What do you appreciate? What have you been neglecting? How have all these little things built you up inside? How have they changed you over time?
Our second reading is also found at the back of the gray hymnal. It is another responsive reading. It's number 557. I'm sorry, 577. Thank you very much. 577. It's Possible to Live in Peace by Mahatma Gandhi. On this one, the response is simply the repetition of the title after each chunk of text that I'll read. So again, I'll read the normal font text, and if you choose to participate, you can respond with the italicized text after each statement. It is possible to live in peace by Mahatma Gandhi. If someone with courage and vision can rise to lead in nonviolent action, the winter of despair can, in the twinkling of an eye, be turned into the summer of hope. Nonviolence is not a garment to put on and off at will. Its seat is in the heart, and it must be an inseparable part of our being. Nonviolence, which is a quality of the heart, cannot come by an appeal to the brain. It is a plant of slow growth, growing imperceptibly but surely. If a single person achieves the highest kind of love, it will be sufficient to neutralize the hate of millions. If we are to reach real peace in this world, and if we are to carry a real war against war, we shall have to begin with the children. The future depends on what we do in the present.
Nerves are finally caught up to me. Good morning and welcome to you all on this very special Sunday. Not only am I guest speaker again, but it is also Palm Sunday. I feel especially close to Jesus on Palm Sunday because I too am a bearded person in a dress often surrounded by enemies. People sometimes tell me that it's blasphemous when I joke about Jesus, but if God didn't like it, they wouldn't have given me the sense of humor. It's small blessings like that that keep me going. In this chaotic world that seems to get worse every day, it is important to take refuge in the little thoughts and blessings that get us through. Sometimes we can block out the world and take sanctuary, if only for a while, in these little things that give us meaning and sustain us. It is important for our psyche to do so. If you only ever see the thorns, you'll miss the beauty of the rose. In a world full of chaos, these little things provide comfort and safety. In that same regard, these little blessings in our life also help us brush off the small annoyances. I often feel self-conscious when I leave the house. I feel the many eyes judging me, questioning why I would dress or look this way, or even simply wondering why I'm carrying a purse when my wife isn't around. It can add up and feel like an invisible weight dragging me down. But whenever I get a compliment on my outfit or my makeup, it's like I'm pumped full of helium. My spirit's lifted, strength restored. Those small kindnesses can restore me and protect me from further harm. People have told me that they think I'm brave for wearing femme clothes and makeup out in public. And at first, I would have agreed with them, because that first time I ran to the store in my skirt and heels was so nerve-wracking. However, with support from the people in my life and repetition of the event, it has become easier to ignore the stares from the uninformed public and the intrusive thoughts in my head. Though this ability has become a blessing to my psychology and my emotional regulation, it has also come with a downside: loss of awareness. When you become so used to ignoring all the small annoyances or discrimination repeatedly, you start to become blind to it. So when all of those small annoyances become a little too big to ignore, you become triggered. Suddenly, all the weight of those little things all come up in a serious surge. You may even lash out verbally and end up becoming the bad guy because that's not how you usually behave. If you've heard me speak before, you're already aware that my background is in communication studies. Communication is the application of the principles and theories of psychology and sociology. By using proper communication techniques, one can change a heart or sway the masses. In that way, it's like magic. But with great power comes great responsibility. The government and corporations have weaponized our communication in ways that you're not even aware of. And if we've learned nothing from the Fallout universe, we know when psychology and sociology are your weapons, and you have enough money and are governed by no morality, you can do some truly deplorable things. But how does communication theory explain how they're doing it? To explain that, I'm going to have to give you a brief lesson in persuasive communication. According to the elaboration likelihood model by Petty and Casipio, there are two paths to persuasive communication. The central path, the one in which you are probably most familiar, involves message elaboration. Elaboration in this case means the extent to which a person carefully thinks about issue-related arguments contained in the persuasive communication. It's commonly understood as the thoughtful process of weighing your options and the information presented and making an educated decision. It seems obvious, but people who actively engage in thoughts presented will be most swayed positively or negatively. The second, alternative path to persuasion, the one we often don't think about, and the one most important for today's discussion, is the peripheral route. The peripheral route is a mental shortcut to accepting or rejecting a person's message without actively thinking about the attributes of the issue or the object of consideration. You're just not thinking about it. There are 6 triggers that lead us to pre-programmed responses and cue us to take this peripheral route automatically. Reciprocation, you owe me. Consistency, we've always done it that way. Social proof, everybody's doing it. Liking, love me, love my ideas. Authority, just because I said so. And scarcity, quick, before they're all gone. According to this communication model, the peripheral route can only lead to a temporary, weak, or no change in attitude or behavior in the long run. However, when you're bombarded with the same issues repeatedly, you are constantly reinforcing that small change. Like Jim Carrey's character in Click, you may have only made that small choice once, but when repeated over the course of a year or more, it can compound so fast. Corporations like TikTok or Facebook love this type of peripheral communication. Because as we are all quickly swiping past those people or videos that we don't want to see or can't stand, with every swipe, we're feeding these companies' algorithms with all the necessary information for what grabs our collective, quick, and fleeting attention. We give them all the data that they need to sell us the next thing, to control us in the next way. They will even modify your personal algorithms to try and change your opinions. But taking advantage of the peripheral route of persuasive communication isn't the only thing they have weaponized. The even more dangerous secret weapon that they use is cognitive dissonance, weaponizing our own psychology against us. Cognitive dissonance is the name of the distressing mental state caused by inconsistency between 2 of your beliefs or a belief and your action. A good way to understand this concept is through the Aesop's fable of the fox and the grapes. If you're unaware, in the fable, a fox comes across this beautiful bounty of grapes, but they're growing just a little too high. So the fox jumps to grab them, missing again and again. Finally giving up, the fox exclaims, "They were probably sour anyway." The fox's belief that the grapes were tasty drove them to repeatedly jump up and grab at them. But once coming to the realization that they couldn't reach, their choice to give up caused cognitive dissonance. Avoiding this dissonance is an aversive drive goading us towards consistency. This leads us to change either our behavior or our beliefs. In our fox's case, the belief changed from delicious grapes out of reach to sour grapes I wouldn't want even if I could reach. Whether the behavior changes or the thinking changes will be determined by which has the weakest resistance to change. Our actions speak louder than our thoughts because almost all of our actions are more entrenched in our psychology and our personality than the thoughts we have about them. So by changing our actions or behaviors in the short term, we can effectively change our beliefs in the long term. We aren't rational animals. We are rationalizing animals who want to appear reasonable to ourselves. And this is the weakness they exploit. This is why the government, corporations, and companies don't care as much about the central root of persuasive communication anymore. Because they know if they can trigger a peripheral route reaction in you, you will likely act with impulsiveness and emotion. By getting you to make a small act outside of your normal routine, they have already started reshaping your beliefs through your cognitive dissonance. So how does this all add up? When the central route of persuasive communication keeps failing, they instead manipulate the things that you aren't as aware of. By engaging in buzzwords and constantly engaging your emotions, you're being overwhelmed into making thousands of tiny decisions to ignore this or dismiss that. Soon, that is compounded into being dismissive when anyone ever mentions the words environment, immigration, or gender-affirming care. People like Donald Trump rely on the impulsiveness of the peripheral route. By now, he's aware that most people either love him and agree with every terrible thing that comes out of his mouth, or they hate him and disagree with everything he says. That's why he sounds hypocritical now. He just says both sides, figuring we'll be simply too distracted to see all the mechanizations of his misogyny. Remember those triggers we discussed? Those shortcuts to taking the peripheral route? Trump engages in all of them. Reciprocation. I don't think any president has stopped one war. I stopped 8 wars in 8 months. Did I get a Nobel Prize? No. I couldn't think of anybody in history more deserving of a Nobel Prize than myself. Consistency. Make America great again. Social proof. But you also have some people that are very scared. Probably everybody is scared when you get right down to it. Liking. Love me, love my ideas. I'm the best. If you don't love me, you must be a domestic terrorist. Authority. I am the greatest president ever. And then scarcity. The oil companies are going to go in and rebuild their system. It was the greatest theft in the history of America. Nobody has ever stolen our property like they have. The communication strategy of this administration seems to be distract and deflect. They have national or international headlines, and when public opinion does not go their way, they introduce another horrible thing to distract from the first. Even if they haven't gotten us to completely forget about something like the Epstein files, they can get us to emotionally react to the next thing, like an illegal war, and engage us in action against that thing instead. This creates the cognitive dissonance in so many of us. That dissonance may have us believe that we care more about the war he started than the little girls he molested. Big tech companies and their artificial intelligence models have only made this problem worse. Through their use of algorithms and watch time, they've effectively created profiles on every individual, including all of their metrics and interests. Using that, they can predict what you will engage with, positively or negatively. With this information on hand, they can serve you videos, text, and ads that contradict your beliefs with the intention of changing your behavior or your beliefs about them. Someday you're thinking that you might be a little bit more conservative than you thought just because your TikTok is serving you nothing but Fox News and cat videos. Though it may be hard to do so, it's important to remind ourselves to pay attention from time to time to the little things we're ignoring. Even while you're not listening, you are still bombarded with millions of messages every day. And though these small things may not affect you in a noticeable way today, someday they may. What may not seem like an issue that concerns you today, you may come to realize that by ignoring it, you have encouraged it. By not standing with trans people today, you may be asked to drop your pants as proof of your sex tomorrow. You may think you're protecting kids, but will you still feel that way when your little girl is being asked to prove it? Small acts, when multiplied by millions of people, can transform the world. Howard Zinn, historian. And though it may seem hopeless now that you're aware not only of the multitude of negative messages you hear every day, but also of their small but compounding effects on your psyche and behavior, I must urge you to see the bright side of this as well. The artist Vincent van Gogh said it best: "Great things are done by a series of small things brought together." We talked a lot today about how small, hateful things can turn into much greater evil over time. But what we must remember is that the opposite is also true. A small kindness, when repeated often, will not only change you for the better, but also the world around you. What may seem so small or simple could make so much difference. You may not think it's important to get trans or non-binary persons' pronouns correct, but it can mean the world to us. As someone who identifies as non-binary, I tend to use all the pronouns without too much care. I've been called greedy for this. However, I have a couple of people at work who go out of their way to use they, them pronouns with me. And when that happens, my heart swells a little bit. It means a lot. It means respect, care, and acknowledgement of my experiences. Doing small things every day with purpose, kindness, and mindfulness will also compound together. We cannot let hate win. Technology may have the world by the throat, but we can still make a difference on a personal level with mindfulness. If we all work together every day with love in our hearts, the world might get better yet. Please join me in prayer. Spirit of love, heavenly guidance, divine dungeon master, we thank you for your presence with us today. Please continue to be with us and guide us on our adventures and be with our parties into the morrow and beyond. Help us to be more intentional with our communication and to pay attention to the little things we often let slip by. May your guiding light be with us always. Amen. And now, once again, I ask you to please stand as you're willing or able and join us in singing our final hymn, also in the green hymnal, number 84, How Far Can Reach a Smile?
How far can reach a smile? How high a helping hand can lift? How far is far enough to give? Is there a way to learn just how a kindness speaks? Or where it goes, should love be caught to hold? For God pours out this love in all that lives through God. Oh, we see that life can never cease to give. If we then think our small amount of help would not go far, and so don't give, would we still live?
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of hope, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we leave in our hearts until we meet again.
As you venture on, remember the great fact: you are loved and never truly alone.